Time is running out for Congress to make their July 4th deadline on the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, and things could get complicated if it winds up back in the House. So let's talk about the outlook and more with Reese Gorman from NOTUS. He's back up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Welcome back, my friend. Good to see you again.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
I feel like you and I have been talking about reconciliation for months now, or at least for a long period of time. Is this sort of crunch time for this entire process?
Yes, I mean, and obviously this July 4th deadline that they've been working towards, that Susie Wiles said that she wants to send to work towards, that's still like a hard deadline. It's not like if they don't do reconciliation, the government shuts down or whatnot, kind of like there's with a funding bill. So there is a lot of members, like whenever you're going up to like a congressional funding deadline, that really, when it gets close to that deadline, because it's a hard deadline, that will kind of work out, and you can use that to force people to vote. Here, they kind of see this deadline as just kind of just like it's up in the air. It's like, oh, we don't have to. We have all the time in the world to make this bill good. And so that's kind of the thinking by some members, so it's why it's a little harder to kind of get them twist the arm to vote for the bill. And also the Senate made significant changes to the bill, whether it be SALT, whether it be some Medicaid stuff that they're looking at, that is going to upset a lot of House Republicans that need a lot of that in there or don't want some of that in there to vote for the bill. And there's a lot of concern right now that even, I mean, it's not even a set thing that the Senate will pass this by July 4th. They have their own issues they need to work out.
Sure.
But once they do that, I mean, the House itself is going to have significant amount of trouble getting a bill like what the Senate has over the finish line. They will likely try to make their own changes to it. If not, maybe conference the bills. There's just a whole lot of issues that they have going on right now about what can happen.
Yeah, it seems like it's more symbolic saying get this done by July 4th than anything else for a White House that really does lean into the symbolism of a lot of moves. But you mentioned SALT. That's a state and local tax deduction, which you're looking at major states like New York, the blue states, the Republicans in blue states that have been fighting for that. But while it got boosted, it looks like they want to cut it back in the Senate version, which is where a lot of those discrepancies seem to lie.
Exactly. And the reason for that is, if you think about, I mean, there's senators are elected statewide, so you don't have a whole lot of blue state Republican senators because they have to vote statewide. Now, you do have that in the House because it's more by district. So you have people, New York, predominantly blue state, no one would argue against that, but you do have people like Mike Lawler, like Andrew Garbarino, like Nick LaLota, that are really advocating for this because like this affects their kind of constituents. But like people like Tom Cotton, I mean, Arkansas doesn't really care about the state local tax structure whatsoever. You don't really have that blue state coalition of Republicans in the Senate just because it doesn't exist. And so their constituents don't necessarily care about SALT. And a lot of these senators and a lot of even Republicans in the House, the argument that they made against SALT was that, like, why should my constituents be footing a bill for people living in blue states? Like, why should that be the case? And that argument you can make in the House is a lot easier because, like, oh, like your colleagues have these constituents, that's what they need to get elected. And you can make that argument more in the House, but in the Senate you can't because you can't really point to people and be like, oh, like, you don't have the colleagues that are affected by state local tax just because you don't have that blue state Republican coalition in the Senate. So it is a lot harder to get that over the finish line. And Mike Lawler said on X the other day, whenever this whole news, I think it might have been yesterday even, for this whole news of that they're going to kind of lower the state and local tax deduction to take it out, that he basically said, this is a non-starter. We're not voting for the bill. And the House has such slim margins that, I mean, this SALT coalition can take the bill.
And the House has the slim margins, but the Senate has the wider one, which is kind of like not usually precedent. Hey, real quick, there is some movement, it looks like, on Capitol Hill for the Congress to weigh in on action in Iran, and it's putting people like Thomas Massie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the same side of an issue for once.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. I mean, you have a lot, and you have, like, I mean, to your point, you said Thomas Massie, and you also have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. For the first time, I don't think she said a bad thing about President Trump in her lifetime, really. I mean, she loves Trump. She came out defending Tucker Carlson after Trump called him a little kooky, and basically was like, he's not an isolated, he's just like, he doesn't want Americans in war. She defended Tucker over Trump's comments, and this is really kind of also, I mean, you saw Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz in that interview where Tucker really came after Ted Cruz extremely hard on his stance, and Ted was defending his stance and going back at Tucker Carlson. But it's really making the Republican coalition that Trump created, this big tent coalition, it's kind of eating their own right now. And Democrats are like, we have our side of the issue. AOC is weighing in with Thomas Massie. Never thought you'd say that in a million years. But you're having these these internal fights that are really eating at each other. And it could be a real issue if they, it's going to be really hard to get anything passed on a partisan basis. You might have to find kind of more a bipartisan basis, maybe even just a messaging thing. But like, there's just no agreement across Congress, even within parties, on what, if anything, Congress should do when it comes to Israel and Iran. And so you're really just going to have to kind of look at that and see what happens, but it's going to be really hard to kind of find anything because Republicans are eating their own right now when it comes to this issue. And more importantly, you got to get them back on the Hill to, if they want to take any action as they leave town for the holiday once again. Hey, Reese, I got to leave it at that. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining us again. Thanks for having me on. And the Final Five is back right after this. As you are, as you were, as